Hello, everybody. Today we are doing something brand new. We're going to study. We're going to study the art of one of my favorite games called Magic the Gathering. And I chose this iconic art, this iconic forest by Mr. John Avon. Everybody loves it. I love it. John Avon probably loves it because he made it. It's super iconic. We're going to try to make a replica of this epic piece and then see what we can learn from that. John Avon, if you're watching, I have many questions for you, but we'll probably get to that later. For now, I'm too excited. You're excited. Roll that intro. I don't have an intro. Maybe we should just get to painting. Let's see if we can make a replica of this iconic piece. Here we go. So what I got here is just a little canvas on my easel. I got a little bit of, what's this color called? Red oxide. And I'm just gonna layer in my sketch based on John Avon's legendary forest. I've got it handy on my laptop so I can have a sneak peek every now and then. And there's already a couple of things that I noticed about the original art that I really want to, capture or learn from in this little study exercise. And a couple of things to note is that in the background, there's not a whole lot happening in terms of detail. It's all just that super vivid gradient from kind of like bright white yellow into a very deep vivid green. So I definitely want to focus on that. And then the trees that are in this, the original art, they have a couple of detailed branches, but over in the bark and stuff, there's not a whole lot of detail. They're more like silhouettes. And the way they are positioned, it really draws the eye into that gradient in the background. And when you look at, hey, it's a shaka. That's the first one. And the way the composition works is it really draws your eye into the middle, where that super nice golden leafy tree is hanging out. So in the sketch, I think I captured the basic setup quite well in a very short amount of time. I didn't spend very long on it. And with that done, I left it to dry just a smidge. And now we're going to blob in some green. I figured I'd start out with some of these darker shades that are at the bottom of the horizon line. And not being super accurate, and I'm definitely just using the big brush to blend it all together. I added in a little bit of blending medium. I'm using acrylics, by the way. I think just in general, blending colors is way easier with oil paint. But in the studio where I work is also the studio where I sleep. So I can't really use any of like the toxic kind of materials. Otherwise, I probably won't make it through the night. So I'm using acrylics, lots of blending medium, and I'm just working these greens in all the parts that are in between the trees, leaving some of these tree parts open, and then using the big brush to kind of like smudge it all together. And then once I get to the top and center, I work my way into some lighter colors and some lighter colors and some lighter colors. You could do it the other way around, but what I'm actually going to be doing is I'm going to add so many layers to get this gradient right that I didn't really feel like it was going to matter at this point. So, just like reworking this gradient. It's going to be like theme of today's episode is getting that background gradient right, because it's hella hard with acrylic paint. Super hard with acrylic paint, or at least I find it hard. If you're a painter and you're watching this, if you're an artist and you're watching this, you're like, man, there's a way easier way to do this with acrylic paint. You let me know. You comment down below and tell me about your top secret acrylic gradient technique, and I will hopefully learn from that. I'm dropping in the start of this glowy yellow bottom bit, which is lighting up the what do you call it, like the undergrowth, the forest bed. I don't know, the ground. It's lighting up the ground. We'll keep it simple. And all the way up front, I'm using just a very dark mix of the old green color mixed with just brown, what makes this earthy tone, earthy shadowy tone. It's more on the blue greenish side than it is warm. So just dropping that in up front, super quick, smudge. It helps when you make the sounds. Bob Ross used to do that. I like those sounds. Just kind of like brings to life what you paint. I like that. Secret techniques, everybody. Here I'm going in for layer number 2. And I've definitely mixed up a way darker color than my first layer. You can see how much darker it is just from like the contrast that it makes up right now. And I'm basically upping the contrast between the lightest bit of the gradient and the darkest bit of that gradient in the background. And green can be a lot of tones. Greens can be more bluish, they can be more yellowish, they can be super vivid, or they can be, hey, it's a shaka, it's number 2. And then I noticed that I maybe started out a little bit too blue at first, and the gradient itself is actually just more like a yellowy green, a warmer bit of green. So I'm reworking, and I'm reworking, and I'm reworking. But we're getting there slowly. Very, very slowly. All of this took about, the entire, this is post-commentary, by the way. But I comprised this footage to as little time as I could to make the video as short as I could. But man, it was a lot of time working this gradient. So I'm trying to kind of skip through it. Let's just tell you this, that there was a lot of work. And if you feel like let's make a deal. If you think that by the end of this video, I've done a good job of making this gradient work, you got to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Let's just put it that way, because this took way, way, way too long, or at least way longer than I thought it needed, than I thought it would. It's probably the hardest thing of the entire piece, was getting this gradient right. And yeah, so I should be rewarded for that. That's how it works. You do a good job, you get reward. So hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. I added in a smidge more yellow in the middle too, because I feel like as I was adding more lighter color, or more white into the mix, it also dulled the green down way too much. So I added in some, it says on my tube, cool yellow. So I added in lots of cool yellow, which is actually like, I don't know, it's actually really strong, really bright. It's kind of like the equivalent of lemon yellow, I suppose, if you're talking like, professional oil paint. But I got student level acrylic, but they like to keep it simple. They just put on the tube whatever it kind of, I don't know, resembles, I suppose. And I'm using that same color here at the bottom glow, because those colors kind of like, I don't know, maybe it's a smidge more yellow down at the bottom. But you got to start somewhere, and I feel like they resemble each other quite a bit at the very top, middle, and in the center bottom part. It's kind of like the same color, maybe a little bit brighter at the bottom. And something you can't see in the footage, but it's definitely something that I'm doing all the time. It's just I keep checking whether I keep my general composition intact based on the first sketch, because obviously slowly but surely the sketch is disappearing. So I keep checking with my reference image, which is the original John Avon forest. I have it on screen on my laptop as I paint this, so I try not to lose track of the actual composition, making sure that whatever I'm doing, I'm not losing sight of the ultimate goal. And slowly but surely, I'm getting pretty happy with how this gradient's turning out. I feel like there's a pretty strong contrast between the light and the dark now. It's definitely way more contrasty than it was at first. And I've overdosed on the mixing, blending, slow dry medium for sure to get it smooth. And I'm still working on it, but it's getting there, slowly but surely. And I feel like at this point the glow is finally starting to look like the glow from the original, where the center is just like radiating that warmth, that warm yellow, whereas the sides and the bottom are more like this cool dark green. And I really feel like that's kind of coming together at this stage. Also to note that I haven't really switched brushes at all, just because I'm working with similar colors all this time. And I kind of like this brush. It's very soft. It's an angle shader. Covers quite a lot of ground because the canvas isn't that big. And I just keep using that same brush. And this is all still in the same session. Actually, I'll tell you a secret. Let you in on a secret. Every time I do a shaka, that's when I have a little break. Either to let the paint dry a little bit, or hey, there is one, or just kind of like have a coffee or something, and then I get back to it later. So that's like a signal to my future self who's editing this video. It's kind of like a signal to myself. There's this glow on the horizon line, which in the original art I think is super peculiar, because it actually goes across some of the trees that are in the foreground, but super lightly. And I'm not entirely sure why. I'm also not entirely sure why or how the gradients in the original art are so perfect, yet the Like it almost looks like they're made digitally. But then you get these splashes of yellow in the foreground that look like it's just kind of like paint splattered on. So I'm not sure. I'm still puzzled. John Avon, if you're watching, I have questions for you. I'm still puzzled by, is this piece that you made way back when in Unstable Set, is it all digital? Or is it all just real paint? Or is it a mix of both? Did you print the gradients and then splash paint on top, or make like the silhouettes of the trees, paint that on top? Or is it just all digital and the splashes of paint are just like a specific texture of brush in Photoshop or something that you just splattered on? I don't know. I've looked at it for so long and I still can't tell. Maybe it's because, I don't know, I can't find like a super high res image. So I'm looking at the pixelated version when I zoom in. I just can't tell. I have no idea. So if you're watching, John Avon, you should let me know in the comments and I will get back to you. You got to let me know your secrets, man. I'm trying to unravel it by painting and replicating, but you got to let me know how you do this stuff. It's magic. No pun intended. And I need to know. Your fans need to know. They deserve to know. I think it's the truth. The mystery. Are you even human? Are you even from this planet? Who knows? You got to let me know. Anyways, what am I doing? I'm just blocking in some of these trees here. I think layering these in with a brush as big as I have been doing was maybe a mistake in hindsight. I think I could have used a slightly thinner brush, but especially the ones that are close to the center. But that's okay. They're still they still stand as a silhouette. I also think I moved them to the center just a smidge. Like the trees that are center but just to the left, I think in the original art they are a little bit more to the left, and I placed them a little bit more in the center. And a note about the original art is that the balance of it just seems almost too perfect, if you know what I mean. Like I tried to copy it, and just like my tree is maybe a couple millimeters or a centimeter off. And it just kind of like throws off the balance a little bit. I have no idea why the original art is so perfectly balanced to the eye. This is what we're trying to unravel by recreating this, by the way. Solving the mystery of how that works. But I also feel like maybe I could have, because the paint that I'm putting on right now of these trees to the left is pretty dark. I think I could have used a slightly brighter tone. It would save a little bit of hard times later on trying to fade them back into the background. So maybe I started off a little bit too dark with these silhouettes. Although we are going to fix it later. No spoilers, I suppose. But we are going to fix that later. And I'm using a very thin liner brush here. Load up the paint with lots of paint. And I thin it down with a bit of water and a bit of slow dry medium. Make it almost liquid-like. And then just with the very chiseled edge of the brush, make the lines of these branches as thin as possible and kind of give them a wiggle as I pull to make them a little bit, a little bit wild. And the closer we get to the horizon line, the more of these pop up in the original art. So I'm trying to copy that. I go a little bit off trail here. I'm not entirely trying to mimic the exact branches shape that are in the original art. I just kind of like free flowing here because it was a lot of fun. And I think it worked. So yeah, I'm just kind of like putting these branches in wherever. And the more you add them, the spookier it gets. Maybe I go a little bit too overboard. It's just too much fun painting branches. I was having way too much fun. I got carried away maybe. You can let me know in the comments whether I did get carried away, whether I did too much. But it was a lot of fun. That's all I can say. It does definitely help with how close to the horizon line there is things happening. Like that's where the original art gradient kind of stops, and then it shows like signs or hints of foliage and stuff, even though it might not be super detailed in the original art. Alrighty, so that was day one of trying to recreate the John Avon forest for a study. I'm pretty happy with the result after day one. I got it right here. In hindsight, I think maybe these trees are a little bit too close to the center. Maybe they could have moved over to the side a little bit more to stay a little bit more true to the original. And maybe I used a little bit too thick of a brush for this tree here, the smallest tree. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the setup. I think it's heading in the right direction. I think today we're gonna add another layer to the gradient. We're gonna try to make these trees fade into the background a little bit. And then once that's done and dried up, we can start detailing those trees. And hopefully after that, we can start blocking in the big ones too. So that's what we're gonna try to do today. I'm gonna put this back on the easel and then we're gonna start. Yeehaw!